So Krista is a dangerous writer, ominous, once again, reading profile, and has read at Burn Time 4 times. Is that the most that anybody's read, other than Tom and Dami? Would you say?
I don't know.
I think so. Let's just say it is.
You do the math.
Including the very first one. She's currently working on a book entitled Teaching a Love Story. Krista.
Okay, so this is how big an asshole I am. I might be. I'm right up there with the number of dangerous writings that I have been invited to read, which I'm so grateful and honored for. And in all this time, the 4 or 5 times, I've always forgotten to thank Dami. That's how big an asshole I am.
You always bring me flowers.
Thank you. And thank you so much for these opportunities. All right. So I've been working for quite a while on a book called Teaching a Love Story. And the book is full of stories, times I've been inspired and touched by my students. And it's full of a lot of good stuff. However, I worked at Heald College, which some of you may, some of you may not know. For 140 years we were a not-for-profit school, and then we were bought by Corinthian College. And they're really pretty awful, Corinthian College, and they're now, and what's happened is they shut us down a couple of months ago. So what's occurred is I've written the chapter that I never wanted to have to write. So I'm going to read that to you tonight. It's called Affected Immediately. You know those phantom limbs, the lost limbs that itch or ache, even though they are not really there anymore? Well, I am a phantom teacher. I read a poem or an article or a story, and I itch or ache to teach it, and then remember that my classroom isn't really there anymore. On April 26th, the college I work at closed down for good. Early that Sunday morning, I got an email from a friend with a link to a news article, which I then forwarded to my boss, who confirmed it. I showed the article, which was on my phone, to my husband. That's the good thing about things that are written. You don't have to speak, just show. I'm sorry, my husband Dave said. I'm going to walk the dog, I said. When I returned, my husband asked if I wanted to go to the gym. I want to weed. I sat on the cement front steps with my new green gardening gloves, the kind with the rubbery bumps on the front, a 2-gallon plastic kitty litter bucket we use for weeds, and a dandelion puller, a small gardening claw on the ground next to me. It felt good to thrust the dandelion puller into the ground and route around a bit under the earth, chopping at the roots. We've got some prickly weeds that hurt with my old thin gloves, but now I could really get to it. Before I knew it, the area next to the bushes was looking pretty good, and I'd worked up a sweat. My husband brought me a big, bright plastic glass full of ice and lemonade. Uncharacteristic of him, I appreciated it even more. Would you like to go for a bike ride, he asked. I want to weed, I said. I moved over to the overgrown flower bed. This was my territory. My husband took care of every other aspect of the yard, but I had this little bed. Usually the annuals became biannuals, as I ended up with 2 plantings, spring flowers, petunias or pansies or daffodils, and then, after those flowers died due to neglect, a fall planting, asters, mums, or daisies. The bed was full of flatworms and other insects living off the rich planting soil. I would keep onto it at least twice a year. I navigated my way around the living things. I heard the bleep from my phone indicating a new message, but ignored it for a while. When it came time for another break, I picked up my phone and saw there was a message from Corinthian College. Fuck them, I thought. Took a drink of my lemonade and got back to my bed. I dug around for a while. I took the claw and dragged it across the earth, trying to make the bed even. I pulled up strands of dead grass. Spiders scampered. Fuck them, I thought again, as tears slid down my dirty, sweaty face. I chopped the gardening claw even harder into the earth, scraped it into the soil to level things out. I couldn't resist. After a few minutes, I took another break, slid my gloves off, and listened to the message. "Hello," said an automated voice. A slight pause, and then, "Hello," a second time. "The college you teach at has been permanently closed. Effective immediately. Please check your email." I had the phone on speaker, so Dave heard it too. We looked across the yard at each other. Dave started to say something, but I cut him off. "I want to weed," I said. I picked up the claw and chopped the earth, chopped clumps of dirt. The claw clanged as it hit on small rocks buried in the dirt. 15 years I had worked at that school, and it's not an exaggeration to say that almost every day I loved my job. And it wouldn't exactly be truthful to say I didn't see it coming. I did see it coming, but not like this, so unceremonious. We had just begun a new quarter, and we wiped our collective brow, thinking we were good for at least another 11 weeks. It would be a cheap shot to compare this to someone's death and how you wouldn't say to a loved one, well, you knew it was coming. Even though I knew it was coming, it still wasn't easy. This was my own little death. I moved over to the small rock wall to weed. I'm new to weeding. I didn't grow up in that kind of a neighborhood. I never learned about weeding from my parents. Not that kind of parents. I'm over the fear now, though, of weeding the wrong thing. I pinched a spindly stalk between my thumb and forefinger and gave a twist and a yank, pulled it up by the roots. I breathed in the damp, loamy soil. Slow at having things sink in and a little self-absorbed, it took me a while before I began to understand not only what this meant for me, but more importantly, what it meant for others. I worried what would happen to our students. I thought about my co-workers. What would happen to them? Dave brought me over a long-handled chopping weeding tool, tall as a hoe. I had never seen it before. It looked new. "Here, try this," he said. I started to chop away the clumps of grass and unwanted weeds. With minimal effort, it, machete-style, wiped out everything in its path. Where have you been all my life, I wondered. I knew that I had to call my son at college up in Seattle. Our daughter, who still lives at home, had been better prepared for the news. She too knew for a while that this was a possibility. My son, though, had no idea. I had to get to him soon because things would be blowing up on Facebook, and he keeps up with me on social media. Whenever we can, I like to FaceTime him. I scrutinize every detail in the fuzzy, herky-jerky little picture on my phone. Does he need a haircut? Look well rested? Taking his allergy medicine? Mostly, though, I'm looking to see if he looks happy. I decided not to FaceTime him now, though. The last thing I wanted was for him to scrutinize me, his sad sack mom, sitting on the cement front steps with green gardening gloves and red weepy eyes. He's a worrier. The call went pretty well. I did my best to put "we're going to be fine, it's time for something new, I'll finally be able to finish that book," face on it all. He was supportive and understanding, but I could hear the concern in his voice. There were no more weeds to pull. They'd all been dumped in the yard debris bin. I collected the dandelion puller and gardening claw and put them in the kitty litter bucket. I set the long-handled chopper weeder tool on a hook in the shed. I slid off my green gardening gloves. I'm thinking. Did I slide off? Yes, I slid off my new green gardening gloves and put them on a shelf in the garage. I took one last look at the newly weeded yard and admired my work. I shut the garage door and went into the house. Thank you.